Good afternoon to you. Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack here. Monday now, the 13th of January, 2025. Time for my weekly video discussion with you. The main topic today, I got some bad news for you. If you don't like cold air, that is. It is starting to get old. More is coming. We've got a lot of cold air that's going to drain down that cross-polar flow coming all the way over from Siberia, right over the top of the pole. Remember, the Earth isn't flat, so yes, it comes over the top of the pole of this round planet. We call that cross-polar flow, and it is going to drain, the jet stream that is, a lot of dense cold air down into the lower 48, the coldest air that we have seen in quite some time. And this will have impacts on a lot of different aspects of our daily lives, from the border states up there near Canada, all the way down to the southern border and points in between. Maybe the chance for some big winter weather events coming up. And this is now going to become important to watch. This pattern that we're in with this big trough in the east and then the ridging out west, that is going to continue to have the setup to favor those Santa Ana winds from time to time over the next couple of days. Parts of Southern California in the particularly dangerous situation. Watch, if you will, because of the extreme fire danger there. So not really a good news kind of an update day for you with bad weather and just inclement weather. Sometimes that's just the way it goes. Tell it like it is. So let's get started and see what we got. First, at least today, it's not too darn bad out there. The biggest headaches are really up here around the lakes with lake effect snow warnings, and then around the northern tier states up here, cold weather advisory. When you get that up that far north, you're like, well, wait, it's winter. It's supposed to be cold. That must be really cold. In fact, let's just click on it and see what we got here in northern North Dakota. So yeah, that's the cold weather advisory. Let's look at Rousseau up here. -11. I'm out. Nice to see you guys. See you in May. No way. So yeah, you got your cold weather advisory because even -11, even in North Dakota, even in winter, that's cold. It can be dangerous. And then just want to draw your attention to these pinkish areas here in Southern California. The red flag warning, the high fire danger, the PDS for that particularly dangerous situation, as they call it. This case for the risk of fire, wildfires, that kind of thing with those extreme winds. Because generally speaking, very simplified version of this, high pressure up to the north helps to funnel those winds down here that come through those mountains. The air descends, it compresses, it warms, it accelerates, and we have seen the results of that, unfortunately, here over the past week. So I thought I'd point out, this is neat. I'm glad the CPC, Climate Prediction Center, and the National Weather Service put this out. How bad has it been, or how cold? Cold and winter, it's all a matter of perspective. Some people absolutely love it. Some people absolutely hate it. And then you've got folks that are kind of in between. I'm in the in-between part. I like it for a little while. I think the winter and the storms that come with it, the ice, the snow, sometimes, yeah, it's exciting. The kid in me, the meteorologist in me, the geographer in me, all that kind of stuff, very fascinated with it. But after a while, it does get old. It's like, all right, get out of here. We got to get some springtime coming. So how have things been? What are the lowest temperatures, the coldest temperatures been so far? Well, glad you asked, because I've got a nice table here and a map that I can show you from, and I'll credit where credit is due. Obviously, the WPC, Weather Prediction Center, NOAA, CPC, all of them working together. And so here you go, from October 1st of last year through January 11th. And Atlanta, the lowest it's been, 22. Boston at 10. Caribou, Maine, negative. And we can look around here. There's Houston, 31 degrees. Denver's been down to 6. LA, been down to 44 so far this winter. Sub 50 degrees in Miami. New York at 13 degrees. So we're not seeing a lot of below zero in here. Only one showed up on this particular infographic. But I think that is going to change because of what's going to be dropping south here out of Canada. Again, that cross-polar flow coming, and we're going to get a much colder pattern here over the next several days. And I can show you that as we go forward. So this is a neat website. You ought to bookmark this, the cpc.ncep.noaa.gov. I will try to remember to post a link to this in today's description. It's got all kinds of climate-related stuff. And remember, The climate is your longer term weather made up of the weather on a daily basis. So a weather snapshot from the GFS, modeling what's it like outside right now. That's your daily weather, the weather out to a week, maybe even 45 days out. Yeah, some of those forecasts, like whatever, right? But that's your daily weather. You add it all up, you look at averages and anomalies and all kinds of different patterns, and that makes up the climate. I think that makes a lot of sense. So the Climate Prediction Center handles that, your outlooks into the future of what different climate models are showing. And you have seasonal outlooks, that is winter, spring, summer, hurricane seasonal, severe weather seasonal stuff. All of that is part of the National Weather Service and the Climate Prediction Center here, part of the bigger umbrella of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. All right, so here it would be the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook and the precip outlook, and I have taken the liberty to go ahead and expand these to full frame for you. Wow, that is a lot of purple on there, and in fact, and this makes perfect sense. Man, why would it be above normal in Alaska? Well, that's very easy to answer because you got a big ridge. I can't show Alaska on this particular map in its true location, but you got a big ridge way out here that butts up towards Alaska off my monitor up there, and then the trough over here. So naturally you're going to have warmer weather in Alaska because of that big ridge that displaces that cold air, and it comes south with this jet stream deal. And again, this is an oversimplification of it, but that is why you'd have above normal temperatures in Alaska. All that cold air gets dislodged and it comes down our way into the lower 48. So that's the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, very likely below average here across pretty much all of the country. The purple is the highest probabilities, obviously, but it is definitely going to get cold again. And look, I know people say, well, it's winter, it's supposed to be cold. That's true. That's like during hurricane season. When there's hurricanes, we don't just dismiss it and say, well, it's hurricane season, there's supposed to be Category 3 hurricanes. What's the big deal? No, you still have to pay attention to this stuff, even if it's winter, because there's a difference between being 25 degrees outside, wherever you are, especially the northern tier states, and minus 25. I think you want to know. I would. So coupled with this very cold air, this anomalously cold air, are the chances for some pretty significant winter weather, and that's where you see these greens in here, above normal precip chances, all around the periphery of that big trough. The bad news in all of this, too, is the below normal precip out here in the west, where you definitely need it. Southern California, no respite in sight at all for any naturally, born water sources. No atmospheric rivers, no winter storms in the next 6 to 10 days, unfortunately. So with all of this, the Climate Prediction Center sort of setting things up over the next 10 days. Let's take a look real quick, and I showed you where we've been. That was this graphic, and this is where we're headed. I do want to show you this because it is kind of funny. This was the outlook issued on October 17th for the winter. Not so good. Sometimes it happens. I mean, hey, hurricane season had a period of time there where things were really, really slow, and people were coming out of the woodwork to criticize seasonal forecasting. The October 17th winter weather outlook, not so good. And they'll go back, they'll look at this, and they'll figure out, okay, what did we look at that led us astray? And it just shows you that, yes, even outside of hurricane season forecasting, other seasonal guidance can also kind of screw the pooch there, because it has definitely been colder than what we were thinking. Now, this goes through February, and is it possible that sometime in February we bust out some huge ridge over the east and makes things warmer, and then this ends up being right when it's all said and done? Yeah, that's possible, but I don't know. We'll see about that. It's kind of like the hurricane season. We were thinking, hey, look, we still had all of September and October to get through, and look what happened. It more than made up for it starting about the time of Helene, and we still ended up with a hyperactive hurricane season. So, yeah, maybe February comes in and we get that torch set up. The January thaw gets delayed to February, and maybe everything's just shifted a little bit. I don't know. I just thought I'd show you this. Don't want to dwell on it too much, but yes, it didn't turn out too well so far. Only about halfway through, though. So maybe I should shut up and wait until we're all done, right? You never know. We will go back and look at this, though, and see how things turned out. All right, so that's the climate. What about the weather coming up? The sensible weather that we can feel and touch and taste and smell and all that good stuff. What about that over the next week to 10 days? This is sort of your surface map. The blues and whatnot are frozen precip. Your greens and yellows and occasionally reds would be your heavier liquid precip. And let's just move this out in time. And we can see, first of all, as we get towards the end of the week, that big air mass starts to sink down. And you can tell that it's there. There's the outline of that big ridge right there. And it's thick. That air mass is really thick in the atmosphere. And it's literally able to just kind of drain down east of the Rockies. Spills in through parts of the Rockies, believe me. Denver sitting out in front of the Rockies there, the Front Range, etc. And it's going to be cold there, too, that's for sure. But that big air mass slides down. You get cold and snow in Denver. And then the Arctic front comes through, more lake effect snow. So by this weekend, very cold air, 1049 millibar high. I want to circle that for you. That's a big chunk of air, 1049 millibars. Wow. I mean, I sat in a couple hurricanes this year that were in the 970s. Let's see, what was Helene down there? Helene was like, I think the 940s. And now we're talking 1049. Quite a big difference. Of course, I'm not in Canada up there. But yeah, that's a big difference in pressure from summer extremes with Helene down here in the 940s to 1049 millibars coming out of Canada there. Trying to, look at that, it even gets up to 1051. That's that dense air I was telling you about. Anyhow, a week from today, next Monday, could be looking at a coastal storm, a little nor'easter action for New England, and it is going to be bitterly cold this time around, especially behind this. And your heights up here really low in the atmosphere, indicative of this, like a lobe of that polar vortex. That's a real thing. So you're talking deep, sustained cold rotating its way around that big low, the polar vortex that sits up over the North Pole. Pieces of that do come down. It's not just a made-up, fear-mongering media term, even though it probably gets overused, or it certainly did years ago. It's a real thing, and that's going to kind of put its finger down into the lower 48, if you will, and then out beyond the week one time frame. We do have to watch, and this is what we got to watch for, deep cold air in place, and then these Miller A type setups that never get started or going beyond that. They scoot out, they're more suppressed. But the south could see some wintry weather. The pattern would favor that. Let me go back to this graphic here. I'm going to use red to highlight it. When you get that deep trough over the east like this of cold air, then sometimes you get these lows that form in the Gulf and they ride along, and sometimes they'll come up the coast or they get suppressed and they just head out to sea like that. Those are the ones that favors your deep south snow. So we're going to be watching that from time to time on the modeling, just like you see here, and then just like yesterday, what was it, I think it was the 12Z Euro yesterday that went gangbusters with something like that, if I am not mistaken. Let's go back over to 12Z yesterday, please. Yeah, there it was. It showed up on the Euro as well. So the models are seeing it from time to time. We just got to get closer to that time frame to see if this lines up. But with all that deep Arctic air in place, something like this is more possible than we are used to seeing going forward from here. Yeah, it's been a while. Last snow in Wilmington, I think, was 2018. Wilmington, North Carolina, where I am. All right, let's talk about some stuff related to the upcoming hurricane season and other weather. It's not always just hurricanes that something like a La Niña can affect. CPC, Climate Prediction Center, officially, announcing that La Niña is here. That was last week. I traveled up to the mountains, what was that, Thursday or Friday or something, that they put this out. But La Niña is officially here. And we've been watching this evolve over the last several months, as you well know. And basically, La Nina to maybe cool neutral, something like that, probably lasting through May. That's the skinny of it. I will put a link to this in today's description as well if you want to read it. But, we've been watching this. We've been on top of this through the anomalies chart that I keep looking at from time to time. And this is today's update. It's always a day behind. It's just the way it is. And it's interesting because it's more in the Central Pacific, and it's kind of isolated out here. A little bit of warming in the East Pac, and warmer, obviously, over in the West Pacific warm pool. So, yep, La Nina officially here. We'll see how long this hangs on. And then I find it really curious that, week after week, as we've gotten into winter here, the anomalies here in the Atlantic, this horseshoe shape, very prominent, unbroken. I mean, you can clearly see that. In fact, the anomalies in the Northeast Atlantic are quite a bit higher. I mean, you got some reds in there, 2 to 3 degrees Celsius warmer than average. And then the rest of the deep tropics here, 1 to 1.5 to 2 Celsius above average. I know it's January and I know it's not hurricane season, but this just doesn't seem to budge. This look, we're not getting the big winter storms to just cut all this down, the strong easterly winds blasting through the deep tropics. That's just not there. So the tropical Atlantic and the Northeast Atlantic in the area that we watch that does affect hurricane season continues to run warmer than average. And if we look at the Hofmoeller diagrams, there's I just want to cite who this is from, Dr. Michael Ventris. We can look at the graphic in full screen mode here. And again, very strong easterlies set up, as you can see, all through this. This is nothing but easterly flow. And then look what's happening in the Atlantic. This is your anomalous westerly wind. So a slackening of the trade winds is one thing, but a reversal for a period coming up, we're going to see even more warming in the Atlantic, one would assume. And this gets us out, through almost the end of the month. This is a very short time frame, but I like that because we're not looking weeks and weeks out that can be subject to more errors. But the bottom line, strong easterly winds right through the INSO region and points east, and then in the tropical Atlantic, not much trade wind activity to be found. Very interesting as we keep moving day by day closer to hurricane season. Finally, just looking at one of the many different models and ways to look out ahead. I mean, we could spend an hour just on this, but we don't have time for that. But I like to look at the CFS V2, see what it's up to. Generally speaking, cool neutral is the prediction over the next several months. Peak of hurricane season will be right through here. And pretty good spread in here overall, but right down the middle, that's the dashed line. No El Nino in sight on the CFS. The Euro, though, I saw Ben Knoll talking about this the other day. The ECMWF guidance is forecasting, surprise, an El Nino for the summer and fall, I think. It always does that, so whatever. There is nothing in any of the guidance out there right now that leads me to believe that we're going to flip back over. I talked about this the other day, to an El Nino. I just don't see that happening. But for now, we've got to keep an eye on this cold weather. I'm telling you, as we get towards the end of the week, you'll see a lot more talk about it. And maybe by midweek or so, with the bigger storm signal possibly showing up, I'll do another video. I'm thinking Wednesday morning, we'll do a live update. I think that makes good sense there. And I want to show you a few things related to what will be coming with that cold air. So I didn't do a live update this morning. We'll do one on Wednesday. Now, before I let you go, I do want to show you something really impressive, I think, in terms of technology, and something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I had the opportunity to do so this past weekend when I went up to Asheville for the winter storm covered most of North Carolina, actually. But I went up there. It's the first time I had been back since the catastrophe related to Helene back in September of last year. And what I wanted to do was try something that I've always wanted to try since the technology has been here, and that is to put the 360 cam on the drone. Now, the drone itself, the DJI drone, has a camera on it, but I wanted to put the 360 cam, the GoPro cam. It's heavy. As you can imagine, it's several more ounces. So I had to do some tinkering and some testing here in Wilmington before I tried this over water or whatever. And it worked, and I want to show you the results of that here on the end of today's update. So first of all, this is just the GoPro player, and if I hit play,